Good morning, everyone. Let's stand and sing this together if you're able. All things are possible when we believe. Old chains are breakable when we receive Yahweh. You keep your promises. If you said it, we believe it. If you said it, if you said it, we believe it. If you said it, we believe it. 'Cause you're a man of your word. If you said it, we believe it. Oh, 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 oh. If you said it, we believe it. 'Cause you're a man of your word. All things are possible when we believe. Old chains are breakable when we receive Yahweh. You'll keep your promises. If you said it, we believe it. If you said it, if you said it, we believe it. Yeah. If you said it, we believe it. 'Cause you're a man of your word. If you said it, we believe it. Oh, 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 oh. If you said it, we believe it. 'Cause you're a man of your word. See, we have this confidence that you'll finish what you started. God, you have never failed. You won't start with me. You're present in every step. You're patient in every heartache. And God, you have never failed. You won't start with me. Oh, you won't start with me. No, no. 'Cause if you said it, we believe it. Yeah. You said it, we believe it. 'Cause you're a man of your word. If you said it, we believe it. Oh, 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 oh. If you said it, we believe it. You're a man of your word. And we have this confidence. You'll finish what you started. God, you have never failed. You won't start with me. You're present in every step. You're patient in every heartache. God, you have never failed. You won't start with me. No. If you said it, we believe it. Yeah. Oh, if you said it, we believe it. 'Cause you're a man of your word. You said it, we believe it. We believe. Oh, 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 oh. If you said it, we believe it. You're a man of your word. If you said it, we believe it. If you said it, yeah. If you said it, we believe it. If you said it, every voice sing it out. If you said it, we believe it. If you said it, we believe it. If you said it, if you said it, we believe it. If you said it, oh, if you said it, we believe it. If you said, 'cause I am who you say I am. Well, I am who you say I Every voice sing it out. If you said it, we believe it. If you said it, if you said it, we believe it. If you said it one more time, if you said it, we believe it. If you said it.
Hello, everyone. I am so glad you're joining us for this service. If you don't recognize this amazing profile, I'm Steve Andrews. I'm one of the crazy people that had the privilege of starting Kensington over 3 decades ago. And I am literally super glad that I get to welcome you to this special community, whether you're here in person or at one of our 6 campuses or joining us online. Today, we're starting a new series called Living the Dream. That phrase is complicated, isn't it? It reminds us of that childlike, God-given desire to dream. And it also reminds us of broken dreams. And you know what? I gotta be honest with you. I feel like I've been living the dream my whole life. It's not that life has been without bumps and hardships, disappointments, but certainly for the past 31 years, I've seen the dreams of my own heart come true through amazing people like you. A crazy group of us had the nutty idea to start a church that wasn't like church. And for years and years, we got to see thousands of people join in to make that dream a reality. God has continued to bring amazing, humble, talented, teachable people who give their time and talents to serve. Our volunteers are the warriors of this movement. You make Kensington possible. And there are so many different ways to serve. We have people setting up and tearing down every week at Clarkston and Birmingham campuses. We have greeters and ushers. We have people rocking babies, leading small groups, serving coffee, parking cars. We have amazing musicians and singers that give their time every week. There are volunteers praying, doing security, photography, and so much more. And I certainly am one of those who are so grateful for every one of you. And if you haven't found your place yet, I encourage you to check out all the opportunities that Kensington has to offer. And I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. The other thing I want to talk to you about today is baptisms. I've been thinking about how Jesus called himself the living water. There's something so powerful about that image, of how he quenches the thirst of our soul in a way that nothing and no one else can. And water is what we use to cleanse everything, ourselves, our clothes, our dishes, our cars. But this symbol of baptism, being plunged beneath this flood of pure water, it actually makes sense, even though its start was with the early believers over 2,000 years ago. If you're a follower of Jesus and you're committed in your heart to continue this faith journey, then this may be your next step. As we surrender to the water, it's a picture of how we surrender to Jesus. And we rise up again, made new. Our team and myself, we've been able to participate and observe thousands of baptisms over the last 30 years, and it never gets old. It's actually the opposite. It's always new. I want to invite you to take part in this special sacred event. We have baptisms coming up, and this might be the time in your story to take that step. So let's return to our services now, and let's learn what God wants to say about what it means to live the dream.
I love that guy. It's hard to see him and not smile every single time. And so I love Steve Andrews. And he's actually going to be here next week to lead us in the thought. So do not miss him next week. But hey, welcome everybody who, welcome all of us in the room. Welcome all of you who are joining us via stream wherever you are. So incredibly grateful that we can be gathered in this way. And as Steve mentioned, if you are a Jesus follower and you have never been baptized, we would love for you to consider taking this next step just 10 days from now on August 11th. And the baptism is going to be right here at our Troy campus. All the campuses are going to be coming together out on the East Lawn, and it is a fantastic event. And so if you are interested in being baptized, if you would like more information, you can go to that website, or you can also go to the app as well. Or for those of us here in the room, feel free to, if you want to talk to someone, you can go out into the lobby and you can drop by the hub, and you'll see people with bright orange shirts on, and they would love to answer any questions that you may have, and also to help you get registered as well. But also, as we saw in the video and as we heard in the video, the backbone of this place, of course, is Jesus. But behind that, or how he works so often through this community, is through our volunteers and our leaders as well. And right now, if you are thinking about jumping in, there are so many opportunities to do so. And so I wanted to actually invite one of our volunteers, leaders, up on stage, and her name is Debbie. So Debbie, why don't you come on up? And as she comes up, can we give her a huge hand? And a lot of us, we probably know Debbie, have met Debbie. She probably looks familiar because she has the orange shirt on. Feel free to come on over, Debbie. And so you are at the hub, but at the same time, you have served and volunteered and led in so many different roles here at Kensington. And so one of the things I'd love for you to share with us is just how did you actually end up jumping in and actually taking that step?
Well, actually, I jumped in following the death of my husband, Mark, in 2014. And I entered through those west doors, broken and lost, and was looking for something or someone to tell me that I was going to be okay. And the leaders of the Grief Share, the facilitators, literally poured their hearts into us and helped us grieve and make our journey from mourning to joy one that we could literally hang on to. So after 2 sessions of the Grief Share, I felt the Lord put on my heart that I needed to serve others, and how I served others was by serving Him. And I talked and prayed, and I took the training for a facilitator, and I became a Grief Share facilitator myself, and have done that for 5 years. After losing my husband, as I said, was totally broken, but I gained so much strength from the people that I ministered, and I'm totally blessed that I had that opportunity to be a member of the Grief Share team. Shortly after that, I was asked by the Hub team to consider working on the team, and what I felt the second I was behind that desk was, Debbie, this is my plan for you, because I knew that Mark did not die without a reason for me. And so when I stepped behind that desk, I knew that this was his plan. His plan was to serve him by serving others and tell your story. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm telling my story of my growth in my relationship with God, and just want to share with you what an incredible ministry it is.
That's incredible. And so I want to ask you, so if the people here, all of us have unique stories and unique journeys, and for somebody who is, whether they're in the room or watching on stream, if they're sort of on the fence and thinking, hey, should I jump in, should I not, what would you say to them?
Oh, I would say you do jump because that's what I've done. I belong to the Hub team. I'm on the hospitality team. I'm on the usher team, and most recently events team. And most recent, I'm now volunteering with our beautiful K-Friends. So I would just say, give it some thought. Put it on your heart. Where does God's intention for you, just like it was for me? And you can come see me at the Hub if you'd like. I can direct you. But other than that, just give it some thought and figure out where your gifts and talents are. And no matter what your interests are, we will find a place for you to plug in, because when you're plugged in, you're working with other people that have the same passion that you do to help others and serve the Lord.
Thanks so much, Debbie. Appreciate
You're
it. Can we
welcome.
give her a hand?
Thank you.
And so if you want to know more about Debbie's story, you can see her, like I said, she has the orange shirt on, so you can just drop by the Hub. But really, when we jump in, we're really able to, what I've heard in so many people's stories and what I've also experienced is not just also being able to connect with others in this community, but most importantly, it's being able to connect with God. And so if you would like to see the opportunities that are available, if you would like to jump in, all you have to do is you can go to that website, kensingtonchurch.org/serve, or you can scan that QR code as well. For those of us here in the room, we also should have received a form like one of these. And so we'd love for you to fill it out, and you can drop it with one of the ushers. Or another option is that out in the lobby, you probably saw all of the tables out over there. And our leaders of our teams are out there, and they would love to have a conversation with you and answer any questions that you may have as well. But thank you so much for considering that. But also something else that we want to celebrate that happened actually yesterday right out in that parking lot and in this area was the Hope Water Project 5K. Absolutely. Let's give a huge hand for that. And so these are just some of the pictures from yesterday, and it was and this is one of my favorite events of the year. That's my little daughter. That's Mia. She's 3. She ran the whole thing too. And so not the 5K, sorry, the fun run. If she actually ran the 5K, I'd be like, she's going to the Olympics. But it wasn't, it was the kids' fun run. But really the whole purpose and the heart behind Hope Water is that we would run for the purpose of providing clean water for the Pokot people in Kenya. And yesterday we were able to raise enough money to provide 2 wells, which will provide clean water for thousands of people. And so we are well on our way to our 3rd well. And so if you would like to give, all you have to do is text Kensington HWP to 77977. That's Kensington HWP to 77977. Or you can go to our app or our website as well. But thank you so much for everyone who came out, who ran virtually, who ran, walked, gave, donated, volunteered. Thank you so much for your generosity. And so today, we are in the first week of our series, Living the Dream, where over the next several weeks, we're gonna be talking about how, in fact, we can live the dream, how we can let go of the things that hold us back so we can run towards experiencing the dreams and the desires God has for us in our lives. And so to set up where we're headed in this series, we're gonna actually hear a song that was written by our very own Kaleo Kids team. And if you don't know what Kaleo is, it is actually an amazing community, an amazing program that was started right here at Kensington, but now they have branched out nationwide and they have partnerships with churches and schools all across this country. And really the vision of Kaleo is to help children discover their God-given purpose through the arts. And so today we have 2 of our Kaleo leaders. This is Lydia and this is Amira. And so can we give them a huge hand? And we also want to say happy birthday to Lydia because it was her birthday yesterday. It was her 12th birthday, so we want to give you a huge hand. Happy birthday. And so thank you both for being here. And so these 2 great leaders are going to lead us into this next musical thought. So let's take this in together.
I've been through some ups and downs, tossed around upside down, but faith don't fail me now. Through the storm and through the rain, a father left his child again. Who do I look up to now? Look ahead, don't turn back on your dreams. God is in control. Yes, He's in control. Look ahead, don't turn back on your dreams. God is in control. Yes, He's in control.
Dear Lord, I'm feeling bronze, but I know you made me golden. You the one I put my hope in. How can I fall when you hold me? No restraints, no complaints, power and strength in Jesus' name. Can't turn back, paid too much with the cross in his back. Gotta start turning my back on my dreams. Blood in my hand, I was left in the street. Growing an L, I was used to defeat. Knees weak, help me, please. Easy to top, but I got a plan to fulfill. Lay on my back and look up to the hills. Trying to find help where it come from. Sit still, don't run.
Look ahead, don't turn back on your dreams. God is in control. Yes, He's in control. Look ahead, don't turn back on your dreams. God is in control. Yes, He's in control. I'll keep holding on to thoughts I can't forget. No matter what I do,
These guys are amazing. They're such great leaders. And when I was hearing that song and I was reading the lyrics earlier this week, the line that just kept on, we just heard it a lot in this song. The line but it really struck me. Look ahead, don't turn back on your dreams. And for some of us, that's true. That's what we're doing. We are looking ahead right now in life. And when we look into our future, we see that it's filled with opportunities and that we have things we want to do, people we want to meet, places we want to go, and people we want to become. But maybe for others of us, that's not the case. And maybe for others of us, we've done actually the opposite. And right now in our life, we have turned back on our dreams. But we can probably remember a time when it wasn't like that, probably years ago when we used to dream big dreams and we wanted to be astronauts. We wanted to go to the Olympics. We wanted to open up that business. We wanted to accomplish great things in life. But then the demands and the expectations and the worries of this life began to crowd out and push out and maybe even snuff out not only the dreams, but our ability to dream as well. And so now we find ourselves looking into the future, not with anticipation and expectation, but rather maybe with indifference, and worse yet, maybe even dread, because we're just simply going through the motions every single day, and we sort of feel like Bill Murray in Groundhog's Day. But when we actually look at the scriptures, God tells us about the life that we can live and the dreams that he has for us. And in the Gospel of John, Jesus actually tells us that when you are connected to me, when you are living in step with me, that your life can be filled with purpose as well as meaning. And this is what he says. He says, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy, but I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. It's an incredible promise about the life that he has for us. But honestly, if we are honest, a lot of times this isn't our lives. And so one option is to conclude that when it comes to promises like this in the scriptures, that they're hyperbole, that it's impossible for anybody's life to be filled with that type of adventure, of passion, and of purpose. But another option that I want to submit to you today is what if you and I, for those of us who have moved down this road, what if we've actually made this exchange and we've exchanged our God-given dreams, our God-sized dreams, these dreams that give us life, instead for lesser ones? And what if that's where we are right now? And so when we look at these types of promises, we have a cynicism and we think, you know what, it's impossible. And so what we wanted to do right now is we want to have a little bit of fun, maybe even laugh a little bit by watching a video that illustrates what this may look like when this exchange happens. And then Steve is gonna lead us in a song that speaks to what may cause us to give up on our dreams. And so let's watch this together.
You wanted to see me? That is great, because I have got some great ideas.
Dreams. Good morning. Listen, we've had some good times.
The best of times.
Yes, but as you know, I'm turning 9 next week.
Remember the time we hopped that fence and jumped on them goats at the petting zoo to rescue the train that had been hijacked by your older brothers?
Of course I do. But that's not why I...
Remember when we went to the moon and filled its craters with cheese from your mom's artisanal cheese collection from France and Italy?
Absolutely. Hold on for 1 second.
Remember when we tried to saw your sister in half?
Oh, yeah! Will you listen to me for 1 minute? There comes a point in every man's life where he has to grow up. I'm not getting any younger. I got my future to worry about.
Uh-huh.
I've got responsibilities. A dog, a room to myself, homework is right around the corner. I have to let you go, man.
What?
You heard me. I have to put those childish things in my past behind me and reprioritize my life.
But kid, I'm your dreams. You're supposed to value your dreams. You can't throw your dreams away. You can't stop dreaming. You can't stop this. Ooh. You can't stop this. Check that out. You gonna throw this away?
You need to pack up your things and leave.
We had so many wonderful plans, activities, arts, and crafts. I can't believe you're letting your dreams go. I thought you were gonna be different than the rest of them.
Please, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Allow me to see you to the door.
When I was younger, I was a dreamer. Sky was the limit for me. But as I got older, I started to figure it's just not that simple, you see. Just 'cause you want it, don't mean you got it. What if I don't measure up? The hard work is given, but I hate to admit it. Sometimes it comes down to luck. But oh, I can feel anxiety creeping. And oh, I'm awake when I should be sleeping. I hear my heart beating, but will I ever make it? I can't remember 1,000 complimenters. One critic drowns them all out. I'm overthinking, painful, it's sinking. How do I fight back the doubt? 'Cause oh, I can feel anxiety creeping. And oh, I'm awake when I should be sleeping. I hear my heart beating, but will I ever make it? What if I lose? What if I look at that soul? What would I do if the only thing that I've ever loved turns out to not love me back? If I was reading, I'd stick to the ending. Life doesn't turn like a book. I can't wait to see how all of this turns out. But will I ever make it?
And it's such an insightful song if you just sort of take in the lyrics. And one of the things that this song speaks to is the fact that it says that one of the factors that cause so many of us to give up on our dreams is fear. Fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of what other people may think. But what if on the other side of that fear is our freedom? What if on the other side of that fear are the plans and the dreams that God has for us, plans and dreams that He not only wants to bring about in our lives, but then use us to do the same in others? And so what would it look like for us to move towards experiencing these dreams and dreaming these dreams again in our lives, not only so that it could change us and so that we could experience more of the life that God has for us, but so that we could also then go out and impact the world in the way that God desires. And so today, and really in this series, we're going to be talking about how we can do that and the patterns and the habits and the things that we can do to begin to move in this direction and ultimately begin moving towards God again. So as we continue on, would you join me in prayer? And so, Lord, we thank you, Lord, that you have big dreams for every single person, Lord, every single person that you have created, that you have plans for them, Lord, which are good, and that you want to bring about beauty not only in us, but through us as well. But so often, God, that these dreams, they get crowded out by all the other things that happen in our lives, all the stress, all the worries, all the demands, Lord, in our life. So Lord, I pray today, God, that you would help us to rediscover not only our dreams, but the ability to dream, Lord, not just dreams for ourselves, but your dreams that you have for us, which are bigger than anything, Lord, that we can dream for ourselves, Lord, in our own lives. And so help us to do that. Show us how to do that. Give us courage to do that. And we pray these things in your Son's name. Amen. And so I have 3 children, and you actually saw one of them up on the screen, my youngest. But outside of Mia, who is 3, I have a 9-year-old Eliana and my son Isaiah, who is 8. And when it comes to their faith, over their lifetime, Robin and I, we've tried to be intentional in this area by doing things like praying with them before they go to bed, telling them Bible stories, and really through our lives trying to be a reflection of who Jesus is, which at least for me, oftentimes does not work out so well. But as they've been getting older, we've really tried to step it up in this area. And recently, we actually had a conversation saying, hey, you know what, they're getting older, and we feel like we need to be much more intentional. Because the greatest dream that I have for my kids is that they would be able to gain a glimpse and experience the love and the power and the beauty of Jesus, which I truly believe is better than anything that they will be able to find in this world. And so one of the ideas that we had to try to move towards this dream for our kids is to, in the evenings, to incorporate into our evening routine a time where we as a family come together and read the Bible together and just have a very short conversation afterwards. But what I didn't anticipate is this feeling at the end of the day, and maybe some of you parents have the same feeling, because at the end of the day, I am tired. And so the last thing I'm probably thinking is, which I didn't anticipate, is the last thing I'm thinking is, hey kids, let's read the Bible together and talk about it. But more so, on most evenings, I'm thinking, how quickly can I get through this bedtime routine so I can have a moment of peace to myself? Any other parents ever thought that thought? Okay, so thank you, right? I am not alone. And so honestly, we had that conversation, I think a couple of months ago, and we haven't done a single thing about it to move towards experiencing this dream in our lives. And have you ever noticed how many things we do exactly the same, even though we desire different results? Is that we hate the traffic on our drive home, but we never try a different route. We want to try to get healthier in our lives, but we push off exercising and eating better. We want to build a better relationship with our children, but every day when we come home, we just go through the same old routine. We just plop down in front of the TV and we sort of go brainless. And so what if, and this is the thing, when it comes to these patterns of behavior, for all of us, to one degree or another, we're all creatures of habit. We all have patterns, we all have behaviors in our lives that we just perform automatically, and that we just simply go through it almost on autopilot. And some are good, and others will lead us astray. But when it comes to the habits in our lives, they are powerful because they have the ability to determine the trajectory of our lives. Because just think about it. Because why are some people in this world and even in our lives, why are they able to achieve and experience the dreams and the goals that they set for themselves, while others of us, we just seem to get stuck in the same routine over and over and over again? And the common answer isn't luck or desire or even oftentimes willpower, but rather is a focus on simple everyday habits. And so what if we actually built into our lives healthy habits that would move us towards God and move us towards experiencing more of the promises that He wants to bring about in our lives? And when we actually look at the scriptures and we look at the story of the Israelites in the Old Testament, what we see is that we see that they were people that they had patterns of behavior in their lives as well. They had habits. And in this series, we're going to be looking at a very specific time in their history. And it was not a good time, but we see this habit happening over and over and over again. And so what we wanted to do today is we wanted to sort of set the scene as to what was happening in this season of their lives. And then Steve Andrews is going to be here next week, and he is going to introduce us to a powerful leader who God used to do amazing things in the lives of the people in this nation. And so we're going to jump into the story, and this story comes from this Old Testament book called Judges, and this is what it tells us. It says the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. And for 7 years, he gave them into the hands of the Midianites. And we're going to come back and touch on that in a little bit. It says, because the power of Midian was so oppressive, the Israelites prepared shelters for themselves in mountain clefts, caves, and strongholds. Whenever the Israelites planted their crops, the Midianites, Amalekites, and other eastern peoples invaded the country. They camped on the land and ruined the crops all the way to Gaza and did not spare a living thing for Israel, neither sheep nor cattle nor donkeys. They came up with their livestock and their tents like swarms of locusts. It was impossible to count them or their camels. They invaded the land to ravage it. Midian so impoverished the Israelites that they cried out to the Lord for help. And when the Israelites cried out to the Lord because of Midian, he sent them a prophet who said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I brought you up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. I rescued you from the hand of the Egyptians, and I delivered you from the hand of all your oppressors. I drove them out before you and gave you their land. I said to you, I am the Lord your God. Do not worship the God of the Amorites in whose land you live." And this is such a powerful statement. But you have not listened to me. And so what we see is that when we pick up the story is that life was not going well. These people were not living the dream. And when we actually pick up this story, what we see is that where the Israelites were living at this point was in a land called Canaan, which was also known as the Promised Land. And before they actually lived there, what had happened in their history prior to this is that they had been slaves in Egypt for centuries until God raised up a person named Moses to liberate them. But after they came out of Egypt, they ended up wandering in the wilderness for another 40 years because of their disobedience, because of their sin, which is a reoccurring theme, a reoccurring habit in their story. But then after these 40 years, they finally entered into Canaan, this land that God had promised their ancestors centuries before, this land that had been described to them as a land flowing with milk and honey. And so when they entered into Canaan, their dream was that they would experience abundance and finally that they would experience this extraordinary freedom. And at certain points, they tasted a little bit of this dream. But what we see at this point in their story is that that was not the case. Because for the past 7 years, they had been living in fear. They had actually been hiding out in caves because they were being constantly pillaged by their enemies, and life was not good. As I mentioned, life was not a dream. And the reason why they found themselves in this position was because of a destructive pattern of behavior that they would go through over and over and over again. And we're actually going to see an image of it, and this is the pattern that they would go through all like over 350 years. In that what they would do is that God would tell them, hey, you know what? This is the way that I want you to live. This is the way that I want you to go. That if you live in this way and if you follow me, you will experience the dreams that I have for your life. But Israel would say, hey, you know what? Thanks, God, but I think we're gonna move in this direction. I think we're gonna go do our own thing. And they would choose to sin against God. And as a result, they suffered the consequences. And as we read in the very first verse, it says that they did evil in the eyes of the Lord. They sinned against God, and therefore God handed them over to their enemy, the Midianites, and they suffered. Their lives were miserable. But eventually, the Israelites would have this epiphany, and they would realize, hey, you know what? When we were actually following God, our lives were so much better. Why don't we go back to that? And so they would go back to God, and they would say, we are so sorry. And they would say, Lord, would you please save us? And every single time, because God loved them so deeply and he never ever gave up on them, even though they constantly would hurt him, God would raise up a leader, a powerful warrior who would ultimately save them. And then life would be good, and then things would go sort of almost back to quote unquote normal. They would be so grateful, they would follow God, but eventually they would once again stray. And once again, they would choose to sin, and they would go through this cycle over and over and over again. As I mentioned, for 3.5 centuries, they went through this pattern of behavior. This was the habit in their lives. And it's so easy for us. Can you imagine 350 years? That is a lot of generations. And it's easy for us when we hear this story to think, come on, guys, right? How long does it take you to get it? Can't you get your lives together? Can't you learn from your mistakes? It's so easy for us to criticize them. But the reality is that you and I are not that different, because we all have patterns of behavior, we all have habits in our lives that we have such a hard time breaking free from. Addictions and other things that we are just simply holding on to. And it could be substances, it could be anger, it could be greed, whatever it may be. We all have these things in our lives, and we just have these negative patterns that cause us to spiral downward. And the thing about the Israelites that we have to understand, it wasn't just this one huge decision that got them into this terrible situation, but rather a series of decisions, a series of habits that they made over a period of time. And the consequences and the effects of these decisions accumulated, and they found themselves in a life of misery. Let me give you a couple of examples. Is that when they entered into this land called Canaan, this promised land, God told them, I am going to give you this land. I'm going to allow you to conquer it. But when you conquer it, I want you to get rid of everyone who lives there. And it wasn't because God hated these people, but because he knew that if they were allowed to stay there, these people would influence his people away from him to the worship of other gods. These other gods who required his people to do terrible things, like sacrifice their children and engage in taboo sex acts. And so God said, get rid of them. But guess what? They didn't. And what God said would happen, surprise, it happened. And it's not like, and another habit they started to engage in was, it's not like they abandoned God, but they started worshiping all of these other gods in addition to God. And after a handful of years, they found themselves worshiping a plethora of gods. And so this is what happened. It was just small decision, small habit after small habit after small habit. And what they found is that their lives spiraled downward, and they find themselves in this situation. And again, we're not that different. Because how many of us are creating a future for ourselves that we don't want, and we're doing it one step, one small decision, one small habit at a time? Because this is the truth that we see in the Israelite story, and if we look at our lives, we see it as well. And this is the truth, that over time, small habits make a big difference. Small habits can have a huge impact on our lives, both positive ones as well as negative ones as well. And just by a quick show of hands, how many of you have been following the Olympics? Anybody? Awesome. Okay, a lot of us, right? And we've probably been enjoying swimming and gymnastics and all the things. Anybody here a cycling fan? Okay, oh, one person, that's good. I thought that's more than zero. I thought it would be zero today, but it's more than zero. That's fantastic. And so I am not a big fan of cycling, but I learned a lot about cycling this week. Because for the past 3 Olympic Games, the country that has absolutely dominated in the cycling event at the Olympics has been none other than the country of Great Britain, if you can imagine that. But it wasn't always the case. And I don't know how they've been doing this Olympics, but they were actually favored. But this wasn't always the case, because prior to the 2008 Olympics, for the previous 100 years before that, they had won a grand total of 1 gold medal. They were terrible. But things turned around in 2003 when they actually hired a man by the name of Dave Brailsford as their new performance coach. And this man, the reason why he was different is that he had a relentless commitment to this principle or this strategy called the aggregation of marginal gains. And this was what this principle was, is that if you looked at cycling, and he basically looked at all the elements that went into riding a bike, that if you took all of these elements and you broke it all down, the principle behind this was that what if we actually just improved each of these areas by just a small margin, just by 1%? We just have 1% improvement in every single area. And so when we put it all back together, the idea was that there would be a significant increase in performance. And so that's what they did. They actually did all of these tests, and one of the tests that they did was that they tested these massage gels, and I wish I could have been the person who tested it, but they tested these massage gels to figure out what would allow for the fastest muscle recovery in their riders. They actually determined the best pillow and mattress combination so their riders could have the best night of sleep. And they also hired a surgeon to come in to teach their riders how to wash their hands so they wouldn't actually get sick as often. And can you imagine hiring a surgeon and basically saying, hey guys, hey, hi men and women, adults, you actually have to sing happy birthday and you gotta keep washing your hands. And maybe for some of you, you actually have to wash your hands after you go to the bathroom. But this is what they did. And they did this kind of stuff over and over and over again. And the results came fast. Because in 2008, just 5 years after they had hired him, they won 60% of the gold medals in cycling. In 2012, they set 9 Olympic records and 7 world records. Just because they looked at each of these areas and they're like, hey, you know what? We want to develop this habit here, this habit here, this habit here, this habit here. And over time, it had a huge impact. And that's the truth. And that's what we can also see in our lives, is that small habits over time make a big difference. And it's the same thing for you and I as well, is that when we make decisions to move towards God, and to move towards these dreams that God has for us, in the moment, it may feel like an insignificant decision. And that when we say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna spend time with God, just connecting with him and just having a conversation with him, just praying and reading the scriptures. Maybe I'll start with 30 seconds a day, maybe a minute a day. And when we do this, when we start this, we may be like, you know what? It doesn't really feel like I'm doing that much. It doesn't really seem like I'm actually putting so much effort into it. But as we do it day after day after day, and we develop this habit over the course of years, over the course of decades, over the course of our lifetime, it will have a huge impact. And I know for some of us here that we see this, not only in our relationship with God, but in other areas of our lives as well. As we have incorporated small habits into our life and we have stayed with them, that we have seen the results of what has happened. And so what if we actually did that in this area of our life? That we actually chose to do something small that would move us towards God and these dreams that he has for us, that we could experience more of the life that God has for us, that we started today, and then we did it again tomorrow, and then we did it again the next day, and we continued to do it. Because I truly believe, because I've experienced it as well, that once we actually do this, there's beauty that will result. Maybe not immediately, but a week later, a couple weeks later, months later, that we will see the fruit that comes from these habits. And for so many of you, the habit that you have and one of the hallmarks of this community is a habit of generosity and open-handedness. And I have seen that over and over again. I saw it yesterday with Hope Water Project in the generosity of this community, not only in coming out and volunteering and giving. And so I want to say thank you so much. And your generosity has allowed us as a community not only to have an impact in Kenya, but in planting churches in northern India, having an impact locally as well. And so what we wanted to do right now is we wanted to also receive our offering. And so if you would like to give, there are a number of ways that we can do so, and you see it up on the side screens. And the first is by texting the word Kensington to 77977 and then following the prompts. We can also give via the website, via the app, or you can also send in a check to our physical location right here at our Troy campus. And for those of us here in the room, we also have buckets at every entrance and exit with orange tops on them, and you can place your offering in there as well. But thank you so much for your open-handedness in this area. But going back to this whole idea of patterns of behavior and habits in our lives and dreams, when we actually think about our habits are one of the most important aspects of who we are. These actions that we do over and over and over again, many times unconsciously, they reveal our true self over time just as much as anything else. And one author and scholar by the name of Michael Horton, this is what he said. He said, character is largely a bundle of habits. Character is largely a bundle of habits. And that if we carefully look at any person's habits, we'll soon be able to tell who they are and what truly captures their heart. But our habits, this is what's so important, is that our habits not only show our heart, but they shape our heart as well. Because what habits do is that habits drive behavior, which in turn forms character. Because the thing is that you and I both know this, is that no one wakes up one day saying, oh, you know what? I developed this character overnight, right? It doesn't happen like that. Nobody says, oh, you know what? I developed honesty or integrity or kindness overnight. It doesn't happen immediately. But rather, our character is shaped by the responses we make to thousands of decisions over the course of years, over the course of decades, over the course of our lifetime. For example, when we tell the truth, in hard situations, when it would be so much easier to lie. And we do it not just once, but we do it over and over
and over again, what forms is not just a habit, but a habit that forms the character of integrity in us. But at the same time, on the flip side of that, you also see this as well. In that people who have committed fraud, like Bernie Madoff, like massive fraud, it's not like they ended up at this situation overnight. But what happened was that they made decision after decision after decision. They bent the rules a little bit here. They manipulated the numbers a little bit here. They cut corners a little bit here. And this ended up being a habit. And it also formed a character of compromise in them, and they found themselves in this place. Because a habit is not just about having something, but rather it's about becoming someone. It truly does shape our heart, because habits are so incredibly powerful. And the reason why God wanted to develop these habits in his people, the reason why he told them, hey, you know what? I want you to solely be devoted to me. I don't want you to worship these other gods, is because through these habits, he wanted to shape the hearts of his people so that they would then go out and shape the world. Because God's dream for the world, God's dream was never about just one people group, but it was always about all peoples. And we see this in the very beginning of the book of Genesis, where God said this. He said this to a man named Abraham, and this was his dream and how he desired to use his people. He said, I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. This was his dream from the very beginning, to reach everyone through his people. But he knew it would not happen, that his people would drift, which they ultimately ended up doing, unless these habits were developed in their lives. And these habits, which would ultimately shape who they were. And as I mentioned, probably along with all of you, I've been watching the Olympics quite a bit. And every 4 years, it's one of my favorite events because the competitions are great, but what really I love about the Olympics are the stories that emerge out of them. And this past Thursday, something great happened that our community celebrated, in that Annie Laser, she won. If you saw the 200-meter breaststroke, Annie Laser and her family is actually a part of our Kensington community, and she won the bronze medal on Thursday. And it was such an incredible, incredible race. And if you do not know her story, that her story is so amazing, I encourage you to Google it and read about it, because she has experienced so much. But at the same time, something else that happened this past week that I will remember for a very, very long time is that Suni Lee won the gold medal for our country in the women's gymnastics all-around competition. And her victory was so inspiring, not just because of everything that has happened with Simone Biles and the fact that she needed to step up and she entered into this space and she actually claimed a victory in this really, really difficult event. But also the reason why it was so incredible for me was that she is the first Hmong American to make it to the Olympics. She's the first Hmong American to also to win a gold medal. And she is also the first Asian American woman to win a medal and to win a gold medal in this event. And so for the Asian American community, for the Hmong American community, this was so huge. And for some people, the conversations that I've had is that some people, when we talk about the Hmong people group, they weren't too familiar. And so it's been really an education in the Hmong ethnic group as well. And if you're not familiar with the Hmong people, they actually lived in southwestern China for many, many years. And then they actually migrated to countries like Laos and Thailand and other countries in Southeastern Asia in search of freedom. And basically, the Hmong people are a people without a nation. And during the Vietnam War, the CIA actually recruited Hmong soldiers to fight alongside of the US, and thousands died. But then the US pulled out, and so many of the Hmong people and so many of these soldiers and their families were abandoned. But luckily, a handful were able to come as refugees and get settled here. And Suni Lee's two parents, they actually came as refugees, and that's how they entered into this country. And so that is a huge part of her story. But at the same time, when you actually read her story, for her to even get to the Olympics, I feel like was pretty incredible because of the obstacles that she has had to overcome. And that not too long before the Olympics were supposed to happen, she actually suffered an ankle injury that kept her out for 3 months. Her aunt and her uncle, they actually died of COVID 2 weeks apart. And she's also lives in the Minneapolis area. And if you've been following what has been happening in the past year, there's been this surge in anti-Asian violence, and particularly in Minneapolis, it's been difficult with everything that has been happening with George Floyd, with Derek Chauvin, with Tou Thao, and how that whole event and how the Hmong community has sort of been connected in that way and intertwined in that way. And if you read her story, one of the things that she says is that that had a huge impact on her. But another event that happened was that her father was involved in an accident, and he actually was paralyzed from the chest down. And so a person that she calls her best friend and her biggest cheerleader, and there are so many other things. It's just event after event after event. But what she is known for is she is known for her mental toughness. She is known for her resilience and her perseverance and her endurance and her ability to move through adversity. And one of the ways that I know that one of the lessons and one of the reasons why she has these habits in her life is because these are the lessons that her parents have passed down to her. Because if anyone has grit and perseverance and resilience, it's refugees. People who come to this country with little to nothing, and they have to rebuild their lives in a foreign culture with people that they have never, ever met before. That is her parents' story. And it's through their lives that they have communicated these lessons and instilled these habits in her. But at the same time, something else that she has done since she was very, very young is that she actually visualizes situations, pressure-packed situations that are filled with adversity. So when she actually enters into them, that they don't crush her, and she's able to stand up under the pressure. And it's through these habits that she has developed in her life that she was able to move towards accomplishing her dreams. Because these small habits that she stuck to for years, they made a huge impact in her life. And they not only propelled her towards the dreams that she has, but they also shaped who she is today, which is a gold medal winner. And it's incredible. And so this is the question that I want to ask to all of us here, is that what are the God-given, God-sized dreams in our lives? What are those dreams? And maybe for some of us, we don't know, because maybe years ago, maybe even decades ago, we stopped dreaming because all the demands and the expectations and the stress of life sort of entered in and crowded out those dreams and even the ability to dream. And so what would it look like for us today, if that is you, for you to take a step towards experiencing that dream in your life? What is the one thing that you can do starting today, and then also tomorrow, and then the next day to move towards it? Maybe it's just simply sitting before God and just having a conversation with Him and saying, Lord, would you help me to dream again? Would you help me to dream your dreams that you have for my life? Or maybe for others of us, we know what these dreams are in our lives, these God-sized dreams, these God-given dreams, but they've taken a back seat because we've been chasing after our own dreams. And if that is you, what if the one thing that you can do to experience these God-given dreams is to begin surrendering the dreams that you've been chasing after so long, so that you can take hold of these dreams, which I guarantee you are so much better and so much bigger, because that is the God that we serve. But what is the one thing that we can do to move towards God, to move towards experiencing these dreams and instilling these habits and patterns of behavior in our life that will propel us to live the life that God has for us? Let's bow our heads and pray. And so, Lord, we thank you. We thank you that you desire great things for us in our lives, that you love us so deeply, Lord. And I know, Lord, that at times, even as I think back on this past week, this message has been so convicting to me, because oftentimes, Lord, that I have forgotten about the dreams that you've placed in my life, dreams that give me life, dreams that just really fill me with excitement. And I know I am not the only one. And so, Lord, I pray that you would show us how we can move towards you and move towards these dreams, God, whatever our situation may be. We thank you for your love and care for us. And we pray these things in your Son's name. Amen. And so right now, what we're going to do is we're going to move into a musical thought. And this really speaks to what we've been talking about. And this first song is really about surrendering, about how we can actually surrender who we are to God so that he can give us his dreams and more of who he is. And so if you are able to, I'd love for you to stand and join us, and let's sing this out together.
hope again. New mercy every morning. Leading my heart to your voice. I'm crying out for you. I'm crying out for you. Surrender.
so as we close today, that God would do exactly that and open our eyes to what he desires in our lives, the dreams that he has for us, that they would be realized. And so as we close today, just a few things that I want to remind you about. We'd love for you to, for those of us in the room, to fill out those cards, drop them off with our ushers. Also go out to the lobby. Love for you to have a conversation with our team leaders. And anyone who would like to receive prayer, somebody to pray with them, our prayer team will also be down front. But thank you so much for being here and watching on stream. Have a great rest of your weekend, everyone.